Yeah. So we have he's in a nursing home. So can you just let everybody know when we talk? They need to know that there's an individual on the phone that may struggle to hear something. The phone is up and on right there. And have people like come up and share. I can grab the phone for you. There's going to be a piece of mouth where people are just kind of down here talking. So I can just, it's up to you to pick it up. I could do that because I think that would be the best way because not everybody's going to be able to find everything. I know that he's going to enjoy to hear everything. Yeah, I'll try to get it so you can hear it. Yeah, just want to give you that job. I appreciate that. You're being listening. Wait to talk.
Yeah, I've been saving her seat.
She said, yeah, I was just...
Yeah, let's move family up on the first row.
You never know the impact an individual has on somebody's life.
We got seats down here. We might need seats. There's right here. Yeah.
All right, I wasn't sure what that
Okay. Yeah.
How about you?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is always a testament to the person that we're remembering today when the room is packed like this. I personally didn't have the honor of meeting Scott, but just by seeing how many people showed up, I heard a plane just landed from Travis. That's amazing. And so this is an honor to be a chaplain and to help facilitate this service, this memory. And so on behalf of the family, I want to welcome you as we gather to honor and remember Scott R. Dillinger. Today we come together to grieve the loss of a husband, a son, a brother, a colleague, and a friend, but we also come to celebrate his life and his service. and the impact that he has had on those around him. And that is clear by the amount of people who are crammed in this room today. Scott lived a life of dedication to his family, his country, and his passion for aviation. As we reflect on his life today, may we find comfort in the memories that are shared, in the legacy that he leaves behind, and in the hope that he is at peace. So to get started, we're going to watch a short video of Scott, and then we're going to turn it over to his wife, Yolanda. And,
Without each and every one of these people are out. I'm just a symbol for the squad.
Celebrating a landmark event at Travis Air Force Base. A longtime flight engineer counts 10,000 flight hours just months before his retirement.
Now, Sergeant Scott Dillinger just flew in from a mission in Alaska, and he had no idea his family and friends were waiting for him to celebrate. CBS 13's Angela Vassallo with the surprise.
A milestone landing into Travis Air Force Base. Sergeant Scott Dillinger's latest mission granting him 10,000 hours in the air, an accomplishment only 3 Air Force flight engineers in the country have been able to achieve. A champagne bath to celebrate was in order.
It was a personal milestone, really important in my military career.
A flight engineer in the Air Force for more than 2 decades, Dillinger has traveled the globe. He's completed over 1,000 missions to rack up his 10,000 flight hours just months before his retirement.
Flying locals out here, flying in the Middle East, doing trips across the Pacific.
Humanitarian at heart, he remembers one mission in Haiti in which he helped save a baby's life.
We got called out of our crew rest, which is our normal time off. Hey, we have an emergency, a baby that needs to go to HICM. So everybody got together and we got the baby there. Mission accomplished, baby lived.
Many of Dillinger's missions are executed on a KC-10, one of only 2 special aircraft used by the Air Force that holds enough fuel to fly around the world.
He has literally been in the air on a United States Air Force airplane for more than 1 year of his life.
Dillinger's extensive flying experience has been invaluable to his squadron. His commander isn't ready to let him go.
Scott has the same number of hours as my next 3 most seasoned flight engineers. That's going to be a tough thing to lose.
It was a special day for Dillinger, but even more memorable as he saw his wife guiding him in on his final approach.
I just expected a patch, and maybe we're gonna have some dinner over here when we landed, and that was it. I did not expect this.
Yeah, I got a little more than a little dinner there. Sergeant Dillinger says he plans to take a short break and then head back to the base to continue flying.
But an end is in sight because he retires in October. What a career.
Yolanda?
So good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming. Well, we have great weather. I was going to say in spite of the bit of a cold, but it really changed today. I'm really happy to see all of you. I mean, I feel so warm, and I'm not feeling alone because of all of you here today. But first of all, I want to thank RK and Julie for adopting Scott as a child. And, you know, that he brought, he had told me that he had a wonderful childhood. He loved to swim so many times. His parents and 2 sisters, Holly and Crystal, would head out to swim meets. You know, he was a champion out there. He told me on one occasion in the Central Valley, it was so hot that, you know, they had to put blocks of ice in the pool to cool it off so that they could do their swim meet. You know, his military dad, he took the time to spend special days with Scott whenever he was home. You know, I was happy and blessed to have been Scott's wife for almost 36 years. And in fact, March 31st marks a truly special day for us. We met at Johnny B. Good's Club in Alameda on a Tuesday night on March 31st, 1987. He was in the Navy, getting out in December to be close to his dad in Wichita, Kansas. I followed and arrived at his apartment, doorstep on March 31st, 1988, exactly, 1 year later. And we got married 1 year later on a Friday afternoon on March 31st, 1989. So I just wanted to make it easy for Scott to remember the day. So I'm just very thankful that we had a total of 38 years together. And what's really makes me happy is he was able to finish out his military career, you know, with the 10,000 hours there. From a radioman to a satellite communications technician, to an aircraft mechanic, to a flight engineer examiner, to a civilian pilot instructor for the Air Force, he did it all. Wow. I mean, he just did it all, and he saw the world many times over. And I was just so astonished of his level of aviation expertise, even as a child. Just so much professionalism, and yet, you know, he was such an easygoing guy with all his students. They could all relate to him. He was always talking about his students, and in fact, I always was in on it. I'd tell him, okay, if your students get 100 on their test, they get lunch from me. So that was an incentive that I had for him, so I could be part of it. You know, and he was gone most of the holidays, and it was rough, you know, on our marriage, but I'll have Frank read a letter a little bit later, because one Christmas I received a letter from a commander, and that just made it all worthwhile that he was out there fighting for his country. So I understood his passion and dedication to the military. His favorite color was blue. That's why I asked everybody to wear blue. I have here the blue cards there, so make sure you put your notes, your last words to Scott, and you know, take a look at his pictures here. He did a lot of fun things, scuba diving. He was a train engineer for a day, you know, whatever I could do. He went surfing, learned to surf. So he did a lot of stuff even though he was away. And then I also brought some goodie bags. They're in the back there, so make sure you take a goodie bag. Thanks to Shelby, she did those for me. And it's all of his favorites. Chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal raisin, and chocolate covered cherries. His grandmother used to always bring him a box of cherries when he was a kid. That was his favorite. And you know, after this ceremony here, if you can all meet up at Salt Fork and just talk more about his memories. February 4th was the saddest day in my life, aside from my dad passing away 20 years ago. But you know what? I am so happy to see all of you, you know. Look at this. I mean, all these people, all the lives that he touched, and you know, a lot of people that couldn't make it here. So I'm extremely grateful that you know, you guys are he's gonna be part of you forever. You know, all the training. I'm so confident in all these young pilots that are gonna have this training, and you know, thanks to him. So thank you all for coming, and he'll live through all of us.
And now I'll read the obituary. Scott R. Dillinger, 61, of Altus, passed away Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, at his home. Scott was born on August 23rd, 1963, in Fort Worth, Texas, to R.K. and Julie Firm Dillinger. Growing up in a military family, Scott attended many schools along the way before graduating from Carbondale Community High School in Carbondale, Illinois. After high school, he answered the call to serve, dedicating 36 faithful years to the U.S. Navy, the Kansas Air National Guard, the California Air National Guard, and the U.S. Air Force Active Reserves. His numerous deployments and final tour at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California, speaks to his unwavering commitment to duty. On March 31st, 1989, Scott married the love of his life, Yolanda Palo, in Wichita, Kansas. Following his military career, he worked as a mechanic, supervisor for United Airlines in San Francisco, and later as a KC-46 pilot instructor at Flight Safety, Altus Air Force Base. Scott has a passion for aviation and pursued excellence in both flying and teaching. His pilot ratings are private, instrument, commercial, glider, reflect his deep love for the skies. Beyond aviation, Scott found joy in reading, building model airplanes, and dog rescue, showing his compassionate heart for animals. Scott is survived by his wife Yolanda, his father R.K. Dillinger and wife Emma, his mother Julie Weston and husband Al, his sisters Crystal Lentes, Brian, and Holly Atwell, his half-brother Frank Willis, and many other family members and friends. Today we remember Scott as a man of integrity, passion, and devotion, and we thank God for the time that we had with him. We're going to have a lot of opportunities to hear from people and hear stories, and so I'm going to keep these words of encouragement short because this is a joy, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories and that you guys have to share about Scott. But Scott's life was dedicated with one of service, commitment, and love. He gave himself, so much of himself, to his country, his students, his family, and even the dogs that he rescued. For those who had the honor of knowing him, there is no doubt that Scott left an impact on your life. While his passing leaves a void, we hold on to the truth that his impact will remain. In times of loss, it's helpful to turn to Scripture for comfort, and Psalm 23 is a passage of peace and assurance. It reminds us that even in our darkest valleys, we are not alone, that God's presence is with us, and Scott is now at peace in that presence. At this time, I'm going to read Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. At this time, we're going to have some people share a memory, a word about Scott, and whether you served with him, worked with him, knew him as a friend. Your stories will remind us of what an incredible man he was. Sir, if you'd like to lead us off. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Frank Carlos. I was a boom operator in the 79th Air Refueling Squadron with Scott. I was there for 20 years. When Scott came on board, I was already there. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but first I'll read the letter from one of Scott's prior commanders. This letter was actually dated 12 December of 1992, so it goes back a little ways. As it reads to Mrs. Yolanda Dillinger. Dear Mrs. Dillinger, as 1992 draws to a close, I would like to pause for a moment to reflect on the dedicated professional support your husband, Staff Sergeant Scott R. Dillinger, has given to our wing's demanding mission. The 4404th Composite Wing is tasked with the uncompromising mission of providing the power projection necessary to protect the U.S. assets and enforce Iraqi compliance with United Nations resolutions. Operation Southern Watch requires our aircraft, in combination with other coalition aircraft, to constantly patrol Iraq's airspace below the 32nd parallel, thus providing safety from air attack to thousands of Shiite Muslims. As you can see, this wing is truly at the point of the sword. Those of us in command positions realize success doesn't just happen. It is the direct result of the extreme dedication, high standards, and personal commitment of our people, the finest professionals in the world. We cannot point to any one individual or organization and say they made it happen, but we can identify those people who have eagerly and unselfishly demonstrated their willingness to accomplish the unit mission. It's their ability to work together that keeps us the most powerful Air Force in the world. Scott is one of the people that can be counted upon to put forth that extra effort and commitment required to succeed. He has played a major role in keeping peace in the Southwest Asia area of operation, ensuring the effectiveness of the United Nations resolutions. I am extremely proud to have a person of Scott's caliber in my command. You can be extremely proud of your husband as both a wife and an American. Please accept my warmest wishes for a prosperous and peace-filled New Year. Sincerely, Michael Short, Brigadier General, U.S. Air Force Commander at the time. So that was a letter, a little accommodation for Scott that Yolanda wanted me to read. She wanted to share that with everybody. You know, all this is very impromptu, no prepared speeches, but again, for those in the audience that don't know me, my name is Frank Carlos. I was in the 79th ARS for 20 years. Again, when Scott came to the KC-10 from the C-5, I was already there. And we hit it off right away, as most good crew dogs do. I was a traditional reservist. Scott was in art, so he was there full time. As a traditional reservist, to say that I loved my job like Scott loved his job was probably an understatement. So I flew a lot, and Scott and myself did a lot of TDYs together. We deployed to Al Dhafra, a lot of stories there, but most of the memories, the stories, all the good times, all the stuff we do as crew dogs, mostly TDY stuff. Everywhere around the world, those in the audience, you know all the places we go. And there's certain individuals you just really hit it off with. I think the thing I noticed right away with Scott was just his absolute passion for the job and how much of an expert he was. If there was ever a SME, a systems matter expert, it was Scott, it was Dilly. He knew his stuff inside and out, and you knew that. He was the guy that squadrons would call, you know, asking the quirky questions or, you know, Stanaval, DOV type questions. Scott was always the guy to, you know, figure it out. But yeah, just a total professional, loved his job, 1000% patriot. Just so many memories. Ever since, you know, these occurrences, you just start rewinding all the memories from whichever year, all the locals, all the TDYs, the deployments, all the squadron stuff, all the UTA weekends, all the ground training, everything. All the stuff that makes up a career and all the stuff that comes to the forefront when, you know, something like this happens. And today is the celebration of life for Scott. So, you know, we're here with him. He'll live on forever, as Yolanda said, as the chaplain said. Scott will continue to live on through all of us, as well. Call him Dilly. Dilly dog. God, he loved his job. He loved his wife, loved his dogs, loved his country, loved the Air Force, loved the 10. You know, he was the guy who'd work 7 days a week if he had to. You know, there's nothing to him. If we broke on the road, not a problem. You know, hey, we're slipped 24 hours, slipped 48 hours, or whatever. Didn't matter. Scott was the guy. He just loved it through and through. So a lot of good memories. I know other folks out here probably have countless stories. I could ramble on all day, but we won't do that. We'll keep it to a minimum. And everybody, you know, again, like you said, sir, please, anybody that wants to come up later and share a little snippet, a little story, a little vignette, whatever, whatever story it is, please feel free to do so. I know Scott is looking down on us today, and he would want anybody, you know, that wants to share a little something to say a few words, even if it's a little bit of something. So, and we'll probably have opportunities later to chit chat downtown. And that is a true testament when we do celebrate someone's life. When you look around the room and you see the outpouring and the effort that was put forth, Dilly 7-9 being here today, that's pretty huge. That's pretty big. So we're thankful that you know, leadership allowed that to happen. That's a huge statement. Stuff like that doesn't just happen. That's awesome. So, sir, at this time, I would like to have the crew of Dilly 7-9 come up. Yolanda, I think they have some stuff that they would like to say and present to you. So I'll turn the floor over to Aircraft Commander and the crew of Dilly 7-9 if they'd like to speak.
We are not prepared to.
Hold on a second. His father's on the phone, so we're gonna.
Oh, that up here?
Oh,
Yeah.
do you want us to go up there? We can go up there if you want. If that's easier. Sure. Hi, I'm Jesse Olson. I'm the most current DO in the 79th, along of a long string of great DOs that have been able to work with Dilly. And we also have Tech Sergeant Matt Johnson here, one of our amazing boom operators. We had the opportunity to come and get schooled by Dilly in the KC-46 coming through Altus here a couple months ago. So we've had the opportunity to get instructed by Dilly on multiple fronts, and it was amazing to see him here at Altus. Today we had the opportunity to use Dilly 79 as our call sign, which is an awesome honor, just to honor him and you and his legacy. But it was kind of cool just to hear the Dilly 79 call sign on the radio one more time. Just it felt like he could fly one more time with us. So it was really amazing to have him in the jet with us. We flew a flag for him on the day after he passed. Just something to preserve his legacy and give to you in his honor from the 79th. It was flown on a KC-46, and they went up and refueled F-15s. And of course, there's no easy local or OST out there, right? So really, he was truly flying with us because it's always going to be a cluster and a little bit of chaos just to make it fun. So they refueled some F-15s, cold weather, divert, airfield closure, but they were able to make the mission happen, and really thought of him in some of those moments of just chaos and how he could control it, calm it, and bring it back to the crew and really make it a success. And of course, just come back, have a great landing, laugh at the end, get dinner, get a drink, and everybody has fun. So it was really great. Personally, I got to fly with Scott a bit as I came to the 79th a couple years ago, and it was amazing. We always describe pilots and really experienced enlisted members as humble, credible, approachable people, and he epitomized all of that. So for all that, we thank him and thank you and his family for allowing him to be part of our lives and our families.
Thank you.
And so at this time, if people would like to just kind of come up and share a story, we'll take some time during the service to do that. You guys want to line up, like kind of here? There's a few other people that want to go next.
Good afternoon. Most of you don't know me. I'm becoming honored to get to know a lot of you. My name's Frank Willis. I'm Scott's half brother. I don't like saying half because I don't consider that. I think you're more than a half brother. I think you're always a full brother. But I am honored and humbled to be here to speak with you about retired Senior Master Sergeant Scott Dillinger. In truth, I've only known the man for about 4 years. A wonderful 4 years. One July evening, I was going to an Iron Maiden concert in Nashville, Tennessee. got a call from my cousin Jimmy and said, there's something you should know. You have a brother. And I'm like, huh? Come again? I was like, yeah, I'm getting ready to go to Iron Maiden. I'm like, I'm not really focused on something that momentous. So he said, well, yeah, they first thought it was me because it was Stapleton, Scott's mother, and it was a Willis, and so he had both of them. Well, he'd apparently hired a genealogist and investigator, and there's no doubt it was me. Scott sent me a 23andMe kit. He spent that. I said, do you want me to pay for it? I said, I'll swab. I did the swab thing. Sure enough, it was me, got the match. Scott got to go out to Spruce Pine, North Carolina, and see a lot of the family on my dad's side. Before I didn't get to make it, but I think he was at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base doing something at the time. So anyway, this is basically just a little bit about my background. I actually grew up wanting to be in air traffic control. One of my earliest memories is I have these little memory books. You see a couple of my teeth. I wanted to be air traffic control. I did the same thing Dilly did. I built models. I put stuff up in my room. I hung with string, fishing wire. I'm about a decade from being retired as an avionics engineer, first for the U.S. Navy, then I went to Lockheed, then I went back to the Navy again. I worked mostly secondary surveillance radar, TCAS, IFF. I know you all have trained IFF and TCAS, and Scott and I were actually discussing the mid-air collision that happened over Reagan National recently. I was telling everybody in the van the way over, I said, I've already solved that. I said, I know what happened. I said, I helped develop the TCAS system integrated on the C-130s. I said, I know the Black Hawk has one. I said, we'll just take controls away from the pilot and they won't know, they won't have to do anything. No pilot, no reasonable pilot wants that to happen. But I asked ChatGPT to help me come up with something to see if it would match what I was thinking. And I was like, it spits this out. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I probably shouldn't be doing that, because at work my command guidance is you can use it, but you can only use it within the confines of a rough outline. So I thought that was Scott got a kick out of that. He also got a kick out of I've shared a little bit with some friends and family. On December 21st, a guided missile destroyer USS Gettysburg shot down an F-18 in the Red Sea. I'm sure some of you may or may not remember that, but because the equipment involved, the systems involved on the ship, and the air systems I've worked on for most of my career, I've pretty much been sucked into that entire world ever since Christmas. So my Christmas present coming back home was solve this problem. And the problem, they said solve this problem because it came from on high. I mean, SecDef, SecNav, everybody on down, all hands on deck. So Scott would say, oh, he's working on something top secret. I'm like, maybe whatever. But a small world indeed. I got to know Scott through emails, phone conversations, and finally in 2023, I visited him here in Altus, played in his avionics base with his students, and went to the aircraft sims at Flight Safety. Got to know the man who would come to know as my brother. I wanted to know more, and we were actually planning on learning more about each other. They were going to come visit. I think he just recently bought a Audi. Do you remember which
Convertible.
one?
Yep.
Convertible. Which Audi was it?
I
was okay.
fancy one.
Anyway, God had other plans, and for all I want to say is for the time I had with Dilly, I'm eternally grateful.
Hi there. For those who don't know me, Scott was my great uncle. I only really ever saw him and Yolanda when they came down. I live in Wichita, Kansas, but we always had a fun time when they were coming, and it was always about dogs. Always. I didn't know my Uncle Scott as an Air Forceman. I didn't know him for his miles, but I think it's important to share how he changed my life within less than a year. I work in a kennel for dogs that need to find homes, and a few months ago there was a little Shiba Inu puppy who was very sick, and I was fostering her through my job, and I ended up taking her to my great-grandparents' house where my Uncle Scott happened to be there at the same time, and he was head over heels for this little puppy. Instantly took her out of my arms, wanted to know everything about her, her personality, where she came from, everything. Sat there for several hours talking with my Uncle Scott about her and how, you know, she was a silly little thing. She got into anything and everything she could. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, you have to adopt this dog. He goes, if you don't adopt her, then I'm bringing her home and Yolanda will forgive me later. He said, there's no way I can get in trouble because this little diva would have stolen your heart. And I told him, you know, I have no interest in adopting a Shiba Inu puppy. For those who don't know the breed, they're chaotic, they're very loud, and they get into anything and everything. Well, through the time I was fostering her, my Uncle Scott suddenly became my instant texting buddy. He was texting me every single day, whether it was about how's the puppy doing, do you need anything, does she need anything, or sending me just photos of his boys himself. After a few months of having her, I reached out to my Uncle Scott and I told him that she was going to stay with me. I was going to adopt her. He told me that if I needed anything, to let him know. If I needed any help with her adopting, let him know. And if anyone knows me, I'm a bit stubborn. And I was like, no, I can handle it all by myself. Until the day came when I was working and a coworker came back there smiling and told me I had to go to the office. I thought I was getting fired. But I walked in there and my boss looked at me and she said, hey, just so you know, I just got off the phone with your Uncle Scott. He paid for every single adoption fee so that I could take my Shiba puppy home. I asked him, how can I ever repay you for that? And he told me 3 rules. 1, when him and Yolanda came to Wichita, they had to see her. So next time if you're in Wichita, let me know so you can meet Mochi. He wanted pictures of her growing up and to make sure that she was always going to have a happy forever home. And over the next few months after Mochi was adopted, we were constantly sending photos back and forth. And like I said, I didn't know my uncle as an Air Force man. I didn't know him as anything like that. But I think it's important people knew how big his heart was, because that little dog has changed my life completely. And I would not have her if it wasn't for the great person my uncle is.
Good afternoon. I'm Tony Valerio. I was Scott's last boss, and probably Yolanda. I'm sorry. I brought him back to Altus. He probably, when he left the C5, was happy he'd never come back to Altus. Then he retired from the KC-10 and moved back to Altus. And you guys were great for the community.
I love
so
Oklahoma.
Blessed that you guys are here. Dilly was the second flight crew training instructor that we hired at the training site. At that point, the Air Force wasn't big on us bringing in flight engineers because they had no role in the 46. And our argument was Scott and those like him had spent their entire career telling pilots what to do as a flight engineer. We brought in Scott and he hit it out of the park. He quickly learned the airplane. He has a special touch with students, figuratively. With students, but he was also very possessive of his students. Whenever there was an issue, whether it was with the students, the devices, they just fell behind schedule, Scott always looked at me and said, Tony, don't worry about it, we've got this covered. And he always did. I did not know Scott in the 5, I did not know Scott in the KC-10. I never knew him as Dilly. I'm amazed. Dilly 79, that is an amazing tribute to the amount of lives that he touched. I will say, you know, I say to many of the new classes flying, it's a huge community, but it's a very small world. And we talk about how many Kevin Bacons it takes to be able to get from yourself to any other flyer in the Air Force, and within a couple of them, you can find your connection. Looking around this room, I believe that instead of calling it Kevin Bacon's, we could call it Dilly's, and look at the number of Dilly's that it takes to get to almost every other flyer in the United States Air Force. I'm hoping this was everything that you wanted, because as you contacted me with some of your requests, we were trying to do everything we could to include. Many of you don't know, Yolanda came to me the very next morning and said, I want to talk to Scott's last students. I thought it was a bad day, or a bad thing. She convinced me otherwise. She was as convincing as Scott was. And it was kind of a beautiful moment with her and his last students, for her to be able to see who they were, to go full circle. I'm glad I was able to do that for you. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm gonna get out of the way, but this was amazing. I didn't think this room was, I was hoping we would fill this room, and then we were having to scrunch down to get everybody into the room. So thank you all.
Would anybody else like to share? Got it.
My name's Todd Schroeder. I'm the husband of Nicola, who is Scott's niece. We have Scott's father and mother on the phone that's sitting right up here. I can't begin to impress upon you what this means to see this room filled with fellow service men and women who were with them, and family and friends. I asked specifically those that are in uniform, those that served, please come up and tell a story. It's important not just to remember Scott, but for his father and mom to hear those stories. So I know I'm a retired Marine, I get it, but get over it. Get up. and come up, please. It's important. And I know we could draw this out, but you have no idea what kind of impact an individual can have on somebody's life until you walk into a room like this. Like this is, and then find out that they're all flying from all over the country to come here, and then Dilly 7-9. Like what are you talking about? That is awesome, and I hats off to the Air Force. Being a jarhead myself, okay, you win today. But, that's pretty awesome. So please don't hold back. If you got a soliloquy or story, please come tell it. And I know Scott's looking down, smiling, and playing with dogs and drinking beer. As it should be.
It's Tito's.
Tito's, my bad.
Yes, you. Come on up. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, you made it work.
Hello everybody, I'm Ian Veach. I flew with Scott in the 79th. I was active duty before I showed over, and once I got over to the 79th, Scott was more than welcoming. There's a lot more stories I could tell about what we did on the road, which we'll talk about later tonight over a couple cocktails. But overall, like Scott and I, Frank, we used to go out and have a good time around the world. One thing with Scott was always welcoming, and he was always the smartest guy in the room. He could help you out with anything. I always had full faith whenever I'd fly with Scott that he knew what the heck was going on. And then after we got done with whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna go have some Tito's and we're gonna have fun later. Then Scott left me and went back to the 6th after I left the 6th and went to the 79th. He did the reverse and went back to active duty, and then he retired. And I remember going to his retirement and congratulating him. He told me he just moved down somewhere else and he was pointing one direction, and I was like, oh cool. 2 days later I'm driving home and I see him walking up a driveway 2 doors down from mine, and he became my neighbor. And Yolanda and Scott moved in just 3 doors down from me, and again, probably not stories you can tell all the time, but I always had Tito's in stock in my house. We hung out a few times. But Scott not only had an impact with me in my Air Force career, but also being a neighbor with my own kids, Aaron and Cameron. He was great with them too, and they couldn't be here today, but he meant a lot to them as well. And you guys were always supportive, and then we'd have dog parties with my dogs and your dogs, and it was a great time. Sad when he left, but I know that he was happy out here and getting to do what he got to do and teach, and it's very important. Anyhow, our family, our hearts go out to the whole Dillinger clan and all his family as well, but he meant a lot to a lot of people, and again, more stories to come later, but we'll leave it at that for right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Jill Slager, and I served with Dilly, and I was his friend and Yolanda's friend as well. Over the years, we met in the C5 at the 301st way back when, and he was an amazing flight engineer in person, and you as a family, I tell everybody that your family was what the Air Force family should be, and it always was, just super supportive of the mission, the people, loving, caring. So I was lucky enough to fly with him back in the C5 days. And then we parted ways when our squadron, the 301st, transitioned to C-17s. I continued and transitioned to the C-17, and Scott came over to the KC-10s. And we'd still run into each other on base and things, and I always loved seeing his face and just that friendly face and funny, witty person. Then I was lucky enough to come over to the KC-10 community, and sure enough, there was Dilly right there in the 79th, and I went through the training and had to do my first deployment, and I remember sitting in the room with the leadership there and seeing there's only one flight engineer that I would want to deploy with, and that was Dilly. And he was, of course, that was his life, was just flying, and we went out and did the mission, and he is by far the best flight engineer I've known in 2 airplanes, and because of everything about him, his personality, and how he goes about life. He's bigger than life, and Yolanda, I just want to say that I think as a person, how you make people feel is your legacy, and he touched, like everybody said, he's touched everybody in this room and then some all over the world. So we'll miss you, Dilly, and thankful for Dilly 79 flight today to come and be here with all of you.
And there'll be an opportunity at Salt Fork to share some more stories, and I promise the chaplain won't be there, so you can say whatever you need to say. But at this time, we're going to transition to the honor guard as they perform the flag folding ceremony to honor Scott's faithful service to our country. Honor guard. Sir.
Please rise for the rendering of military honors. You may now be seated.
accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. Thank you very much.
At this time, Captain Delzer would like to present Yolanda with a certificate.
So that flag last week, I got the pleasure to fly with it. We won't talk about what went on that flight because someone else could probably brief me better than anyone in here could. But that flew on Dash 85 last week until 1840 as Dash 85 on the living bed. And he rode on the Dash that entire flight with us. And that flag was there with us. So this is for you, man.
As we close this time of remembrance, may we carry Scott's legacy forward in our own lives. Let us be reminded of his love for his family, his dedication to service, and his passion for flying. May we find strength in God's presence and in the memories we hold. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the life of Scott Dillinger. We thank you for the love he shared, the lessons he taught, and the lives he touched. As we grieve, comfort us with your presence. As we remember, fill us with gratitude. May your peace, which surpasses all understanding, guard the hearts of Scott's family and friends. We commit Scott into your hands, trusting that he is now at rest. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. This concludes the memorial service, but please feel free to linger and check out the pictures and things here. Make sure you sign the boards. And Salt Fork, is it next few hours after 3 to 5?
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5 at Salt Fork if you want to share some more stories and get together with some old friends. Thank you.